In December 1989, Hong Kong was shrouded in mist and rain as the city prepared to close out a tumultuous decade. Yet, in a quiet corner of the new territories, in the neighborhood of Tai Po, a tale was unfolding that would leave even the most hardened city dwellers rattled. It all started in Chow Chung Kee, a small unassuming tea restaurant nestled in a row of shops, its windows fogged by steam from constant orders of char siu rice and beef ho fun. One particularly dreary evening, the restaurant received an unusual call. The voice on the line was distant and garbled, almost as if coming from somewhere deep underground, but the order itself was precise. A banquet for 4, including the finest beef ho fun, glistening char siu rice, and an assortment of side dishes that seemed excessive for a modest tea house. The address given was Hei Hau Fai Gardens, a mid-rise apartment block that local residents knew well, yet whispered about after dark. The restaurant's head waiter jotted down the details, a bit taken aback by the meticulous request, but hurriedly handed off the slip to a delivery boy, a young man named Cheng. As Cheng made his way to the address, the city's narrow, rain-slicked streets stretched out in front of him like silent guardians. His motorbike sputtered to a stop outside Hei Hau Fai Gardens, and the building loomed before him, dark and seemingly lifeless. Rain poured down in sheets, and no lights were visible from any of the windows. Only a dim hallway light illuminated the building's entrance, casting eerie shadows that seemed to stretch and sway as if hiding secrets. After glancing at the scribbled address again, Cheng hesitated but shook off his unease. He approached the door and knocked, the sound echoing strangely against the concrete walls. For a moment, there was only silence. He raised his hand to knock again, louder this time, but just as his knuckles brushed the door, it creaked open a fraction, stopping him in his tracks. From within the darkness, a hand emerged, a pale, slender hand that seemed to float in the black void. The hand held out several Hong Kong dollar bills, shaking slightly as though unsteady or unnaturally cold. A voice followed, deep and resonant, almost metallic in tone. "Leave the food at the doorstep." Cheng stammered a polite acknowledgement, the hair on the back of his neck prickling as he carefully placed the food on the mat in front of the door. He took the money, his gaze fixed on that strange, ghostly hand as it withdrew back into the void. The door snapped shut almost before he could blink. Heart-pounding, Cheng stumbled back down the hallway and hurriedly sped away on his bike, eager to put distance between himself and the building. By the time he returned to the restaurant, he had brushed off the unsettling experience, telling himself it was just the late hour and the rain playing tricks on his mind. That night, after the last customers had left and the restaurant's metal shutters clanged shut, the owner gathered the night's earnings. He absent-mindedly thumbed through the notes when he felt a different texture, a brittle, lighter weight to the paper. To his horror, nestled among the Hong Kong dollar bills were Joss paper notes, known as hell money, traditionally burned in honor of deceased ancestors. His hand froze. His employees, sensing his unease, looked over his shoulder to see the eerie notes, and murmurs of alarm rippled through the group. But the owner shrugged it off, chalking it up to a prank or an odd error in handling cash. However, the questions remained. Who had slipped hell money among their payment, and why? The following evening, it happened again. Another call, another order for the same extravagant meal, the same address. This time, the owner felt a cold knot of suspicion tighten in his chest. Perhaps it was an elaborate joke, some kind of strange game. Determined to catch the prankster, he assigned Cheng to make the delivery again, but told him to pay close attention this time. Once more, Cheng arrived at Hei Hau Fai Gardens. The building stood silent, as if frozen in time. Once more, the door creaked open slightly, the same pale hand extended, and the voice echoed from the dark, instructing him to leave the food. The money passed hands without incident. Yet when he returned to the restaurant and they tallied the bills again, the owner found another stack of hell money hidden among the payments. Furious and perplexed, he decided to deliver the next order himself, hoping to finally confront whoever was behind this strange phenomenon. He readied the delivery the following evening, waiting with a tension he couldn't shake, as if an invisible thread tied him to Hei Hau Fai Gardens. When the call came in as expected, he wasted no time. The owner mounted his own bike, clutching the delivery bag tightly as he navigated the misty streets. Upon arriving, he scanned the building's facade, hoping to catch a glimpse of movement in any of the windows. But there was nothing, only an overwhelming silence pressing down on him like a weight. He knocked at the door, and, as if scripted, the door opened just enough to reveal the shadowed figure. This time, he scrutinized the hand as it extended the money toward him, searching for some clue of the prankster's identity. The hand trembled slightly, and he noticed a faint discoloration around the fingertips, a waxy yellowish hue that sent a shiver down his spine. Clutching the money tightly, he watched as the figure slipped back into the darkness. Before leaving, he tried to peer through the narrow gap into the apartment, but all he could see was blackness, as though something within actively resisted the light. Back at the restaurant, he carefully set the money aside, separating it from the other receipts. But as he counted the restaurant's earnings later that night, his worst fears came to life. The money from the delivery had somehow, inexplicably, transformed into hell money. Driven by a mounting dread, the owner contacted the police, spinning a tale that he knew would sound ridiculous. But the officers listened intently and agreed to investigate, if only to allay the man's growing fears. When they arrived at Hei Hau Fai Gardens, the building seemed even more foreboding, its silence pressing in on the officers as they climbed the stairs. They knocked and called out, receiving no answer. Deciding to force entry, they kicked open the door and were instantly struck by a wall of decayed air, a scent so putrid it sent them reeling back. Inside, the apartment was a sight of quiet horror. A mahjong table sat at the room's center, and around it were 4 lifeless figures, young men slumped in their seats, their skin waxy, their eyes open but unseeing. Mahjong tiles were scattered across the table, frozen mid-game as if the players had been interrupted and simply drifted off to sleep. The bodies, with no visible injuries, appeared untouched by violence. However, a closer inspection revealed the tragic truth. These men had died of carbon monoxide poisoning, victims of a makeshift charcoal heater that had slowly filled the room with invisible death. Forensics determined that the men had been dead for nearly a week, yet nearby neighbours had reported hearing the telltale clatter of mahjong tiles, the soft murmur of voices even the night before. Stranger still, forensic examiners discovered fresh food in their stomachs, beef ho fun, char siu rice, meals they had reportedly ordered and consumed days after they were already deceased. The case left the police baffled. They found fingerprints on the hell money recovered from the restaurant, prints that belonged to the deceased men. As the story reached the media, rumours swept through Hong Kong. Some speculated that these were restless spirits, trapped by unfinished business, unaware that they had passed on. Others believed it was a case of vengeful ghosts, chained to the apartment by dark forces, bound to relive their final moments over and over, reaching out to the world of the living for one last taste of the life they once knew. Since that fateful December night, the mystery of the haunted takeout order from Hei Hau Fai Gardens has become the stuff of urban legend, a story whispered in late-night conversations and immortalized in the city's folklore. Some say that on quiet nights, the ghostly sound of mahjong tiles can still be heard from the abandoned apartment as the spirits of those 4 young men continue their endless spectral game, waiting for a meal that will never truly satisfy their eternal hunger.